Cedar planked wild salmon with juniper and fresh berry glaze. Wine marinated elk loin with grilled wild mushrooms. Smoke roasted wild fruit crumble. The wood smoke really brings out the sweetness of the fruit. We're in the wild and grilling game. I'm Steven Raichlen, and from the beautiful Esplendor Resort in southern Arizona, it's time to grill. Long before there were barbecue grills, our ancestors hunted, gathered, and grilled in the wild. That's the subject of today's show, Wild Foods Cooked with Live Fire. Wild salmon from the Pacific Northwest, elk from Colorado, and even a wild fruit dessert. It's Grills Gone Wild on Primal Grill. What the Indians of the Pacific Northwest would do is they would flay open whole salmons and pin them onto vertical stakes of cedar or alder and stand these stakes in front of a campfire. The fish was roasted in front of the campfire on the cedar. Cedar would impart its own flavor, and that gave rise to plank salmon. When Lewis and Clark arrived in the Pacific Northwest, they found a singular style of barbecue. The local Indians roasted whole salmon on cedar stakes in front of a blazing campfire. That's the origin of our first dish, cedar plank salmon with juniper berry glaze. It looks great, it tastes great, and it solves the age-old problem, how do you grill fish without having it stick to the grill grate? First, the salmon. Now, this is a beautiful piece of wild coho salmon from the Pacific Northwest. And what you want to do is run your fingers over the top of the fillet, feeling for bones. Any you find, pull out with a needle-nosed pliers. Next, the plank. Now, this is a cedar plank, and it has an incredible fragrance, which is going to perfume the fish on the grill. They come in full size for a fillet, individual size for grilling fish steaks. And what you want to do is soak the planks in water for about an hour. This keeps them from catching fire. Now, the glaze. It's a wild berry glaze. You can use any variety of berries. What I have here are Cape gooseberries. They're also known as ground cherries or physalis. And all you do is peel off this papery husk. This may remind you of a tomatillo. In fact, the two berries are cousins. I love the flavor. It's a little bit tomatoey and a little bit plummy. Place the Cape gooseberries in a saucepan, and we have blackberries and raspberries. And now a sweetener that is native to North America, maple syrup. And finally, a little water. And you want to take the berries and simmer them for about 20 minutes. The idea is you're making a sort of berry compote, and I'll just simmer the berries right on the side burner of this grill. Next, make the rub. The first ingredient is juniper berries. Now, juniper is an indigenous flavoring. These little berries, they have a very interesting kind of piney aroma, and even if you've never seen a juniper berry, you probably tasted it. It's the active ingredient in gin. Next, add coarse salt and black peppercorns, and grind these ingredients to a smooth powder. This is a really useful tool for making rubs. It's a spice mill. Here's the juniper rub. What you want to do is sprinkle the rub. Now I'll show you how to set up the grill. So you want to set up your grill for classic indirect grilling. Now on this particular grill, the burners go front, middle, back. So preheat the grill screaming hot with all 3 burners on. Then turn off your middle burner. That gives you fire in the back, fire in the front, no fire in the center. Take the salmon and place it in the center of the grill. Then you want to close the grill lid to hold in the heat. Cooking time here is about 30 minutes. The fish looks perfect. To check for doneness, what you can do is insert a metal skewer in one end, leave it for about 15 seconds, pull it out. If it feels hot to the touch, the fish is ready. In the event that your plank catches fire, you can just squirt the edges with a little water. And to take the fish and plank off the grill, you want to use tongs and a spatula. And now for that berry sauce, spoon the sauce over the salmon. And then you can serve any extra sauce on the side. This is really good. You know, it's simple, but the flavor is so complex. You get the cedar scent, and then the maple syrup and berries do this sort of sweet, sour sort of thing. From the Native Americans of the Northwest to your grill, it's wild salmon on a plank. Marinating a meat in wine does three things. First of all, the wine imparts its own flavor. Second of all, it helps break down tough meat fibers. And third of all, I believe the marinade helps keep a lean meat moist when you grill it. One of the most frequently asked questions on the barbecue board is, how do you grill wild game? Our friend Jeff Clark, who runs the behind-the-scenes kitchen here at Primal Grill, went out and got a beautiful elk loin. But don't worry if you can't find elk. I'll show you how to make this dish with a perfectly tame beef tenderloin. First, the elk. Take a look. You can see it's a beautiful dark red meat. You can also see it is completely lean without the slightest marbling. The trick to grilling any sort of wild game is to figure out a way to put some fat back into it to keep it from drying out on the grill. Both an elk and a beef tenderloin will have a tough silver skin on the outside. The first thing you want to do is, using a little paring knife, you want to just trim it off the meat. The elk loin has already been trimmed. Now the marinade. First, our old friend Juniper berries. Next, allspice berries, black peppercorns, chopped fresh rosemary, finely chopped onion, a couple of smashed garlic cloves, lemon zest, that's the oil-rich outer rind, extra virgin olive oil, and about a cup of your favorite dry red wine. Stir the marinade ingredients to mixed, then pour them over the elk and beef tenderloin. And you can see we have our elk and beef in a pan over ice. Whenever you work outdoors, keep your meat cold. Marinate the meat in the refrigerator for at least 4 hours or as long as overnight. The longer, the richer the flavor. Meanwhile, let me show you a cool grilled wild mushroom side dish. These are oyster mushrooms and cremini. At other times of the year, you might use morels or hen of the woods or even lobster mushrooms. Arrange the mushrooms in a grill basket, and what you want to do is brush the tops with garlic parsley butter. The recipe will be on our website. Then all you need to do is close the grill basket, and you just fasten the two sides by sliding down the clip. Back to the elk. Here are some tenderloins I marinated earlier. What you want to do is take the tenderloin, blot it dry, and lay it on a couple of strips of bacon. Now, you remember I said there were two ways to put moistness in a wild meat like elk. One is to use a marinade. The second is to wrap it in bacon. And you see I put some string underneath. We loop over, 1, 2, and it's our old slip knot. Here's what the elk tenderloin looks like tied up. I'll do the same thing for the beef. I'm using a wood-burning grill to grill the elk and beef tenderloin. Add your sticks or logs to the fire, and you always want to use a hardwood, oak, mesquite, fruit wood like cherry, never a resinous wood like pine or spruce. Okay, and as we always do on Primal Grill, we keep it hot, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Keep it clean with a few swipes of our grill brush. Keep it lubricated with a folded paper towel or an oiling cloth dipped in vegetable oil and drawn across the bars of the grate. Just take the beef tenderloin and place it on the grill grate. The way you control the heat is either by raising or lowering the grate. And notice these V-shaped grill bars. They help drain the fat into this drip pan so you don't get a lot of flare-ups. Now we'll put on the elk. Cooking time for the tenderloins is about 3 to 5 minutes per side, 12 to about 20 minutes in all. Once the tenderloin's browned on one side, turn it over. And we'll do the same thing for the elk loin. And what I did is I drained the marinade off and boiled it down to use it for basting. Now, why do you want to boil the marinade? Well, anytime you've had raw meat in a marinade, you want to boil it to make it safe. The aroma is really incredible, and the juniper just leaps out at you. And what this does is just one more way to keep that lean meat moist. And while we're at it, let me show you the mushrooms. Grill basket may seem like a somewhat esoteric tool in North America, but as you travel the world's barbecue trail, actually in dozens and dozens of countries, the grill basket is what is used for grilling. You'll find a trough of coals, it's called a mangal, in Russia and in the Middle East and throughout Central Asia. And instead of having a grill grate on top, you actually just place the food with the basket over the coals. How do you know when the tenderloins are done? Well, you can use the poke test, and when they feel gently yielding, that would be medium rare. Or you can be scientific about it, use an instant read meat thermometer. You're looking for 125 degrees for rare meat, 145 for medium rare. Take the tenderloins off. And of course, you never want to cut into meat hot off the grill. Always let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes. The meat will relax, you've heard me say it before, and you can tent the meat with foil to keep it warm. All right, let me get the mushrooms. The meat is ready for carving. And you'll notice we always try to use a different cutting board for carving than for working with raw meat. Don't forget to snip off the strings. We'll put the beef on the platter whole. Let's cut into this elk, see how we did. Look at that, a beautiful and perfect medium rare. I guess we got lucky. You know, elk, like all wild game, is an incredibly healthy meat because it's so lean. And last of all, some of our grilled mushrooms. The nice thing about grilling the mushrooms this way is they get crackling crisp. Almost like a mushroom-flavored potato chip. To serve with the elk, a traditional South African sauce called monkey gland sauce. It's made with chutney and red wine. And don't worry, folks, there are no primate parts in this. The recipe's on our website. Let's see how we did. I'll take a piece of elk and a mushroom. That is incredible. The juniper and wine flavor really come through in the elk. And I'll try a mushroom here. You know, a mushroom soaks up the garlic and parsley like a sponge. So now you know the secret of taming game on the grill. In colonial times, a lot of baking was done in the fireplace. It was done in something called a Dutch oven, where a Dutch oven is a big kettle with a hollow lid. You nestle it in the embers, you put the dessert inside, shovel coals into that hollow lid on top of the Dutch oven. And invariably, the dessert would pick up a little smoky flavor from the fire. We're taping in the high desert of southern Arizona at the Esplendor Resort. There's a local fruit that grows wild called cactus pear, and that set me thinking. I give you a Primal Grill first, smoke-roasted wild fruit crumble. This is a cactus pear, also called a prickly pear. It grows on a cactus found throughout the Southwest. And because it can have sharp spines, you want to protect your hand. The way you cut it, you cut off the top, and you cut off the bottom, then make a slit running along one side and simply peel off the skin. And what you wind up with is this beautiful red fruit. The flavor is sort of sweet, sort of musky. It's pretty unique. This is another fruit you may not be familiar with. It's called a quince. It's a very ancient fruit. In fact, it was the ancestor of the apple. So what you do here, it's a little bit hard, is cut the quince in half and then in half again and trim out the core and seeds. Now, in Portuguese, the word for quince is marmelo, and they used to make a jam that was called marmalade. To finish the filling, combine the cactus pear and quince, then add granulated sugar, cornstarch, grated lemon zest, fresh lemon juice, and ground cinnamon. Stir these ingredients to mix. The cornstarch will help thicken the filling. Of course, there's so much pectin in the quinces, you don't need a lot. Once the filling's made, place it in an oiled cast iron skillet. So what do you do if you can't find prickly pear and quince? And by the way, you can order them online. Well, here is a fruit crumble made with domesticated fruits, apple and pear, each cut into bite-sized pieces. Same flavorings and thickeners: cornstarch, grated lemon zest, granulated sugar, freshly squeezed lemon juice, and cinnamon. And once again, mix the ingredients to blend. Okay, again, spoon your filling into an oiled cast iron skillet. All you need to make now is the crumble. It starts with shortbread, then add granulated sugar, brown sugar, all-purpose flour, and ice-cold butter. Place these ingredients in a food processor and pulse the machine until the mixture feels crumbly. Don't overprocess or you'll wind up with a gummy mess. Okay, take the crumble topping now and spread it on top of the fruit filling. I'm working on charcoal grills for this dessert. You could use gas, but to be honest with you, it's easier to smoke on charcoal. Light your coals in a chimney starter, then dump the coals out to set up your grill for indirect grilling. That means you want the coals in the side baskets or raked to the side, nothing in the center. Now place the grill grate on the grill. Place the crumble in the center. And then to impart that irresistible smoke flavor, simply place a tongueful of soaked wood chips, I'm using apple wood here, on each mound of coals. It's about 3/4 of a cup of chips on each mound of coals. Finally, cover the grills. You want to position the vent holes directly in between so the smoke is drawn over the fruit out the top. To control the heat, you open or close the vents. I want to cook these at a pretty high temperature, about 375 degrees, so leave the vents wide open. Cover the grill, adjust the vents. Cooking time here about 40 to 60 minutes. You don't need to replenish the coals or the wood. Okay, it's been 45 minutes, and check it out. How do you know when the crisps are done? Well, the topping is golden brown and the filling is bubbly. And there's your smoke-roasted apple pear crumble. And now, the moment of truth. That is wild. So that concludes our walk on the wild side. Planked wild salmon, bacon grilled elk, and smoke roasted wild fruit crumble. See you next time. Elk from Colorado, and even a grilled, fragrance goes great with wild grain. Granulated sugar.
Hold on, and Nancy's walking in the frame when that's right.
So take the crumble topping now. One of the most frequently asked questions on the barbecue board is how do you grill well?